I gotta ask about kind of the more Brazilian scene there with like metal, like that is, because I've always been intrigued by that because that's where your music more so trends towards in terms of its genre. So how does a Brazilian obviously get into that, and how was like you guys' metal scene, at least from where you were from?
Well, metal in Brazil by itself, it's not very mainstream, even in comparison to the USA. I know heavy metal is not mainstream anywhere, but even compared to the USA, Brazilians are really about like carnival music and
Hmm.
all that stuff. But inside heavy metal, we have a very different metal scene from the United States in a sense that we are more like tuned in into the traditional side of heavy metal. I noticed that in the United States, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's more about metalcore and more
That kind of exploded, yeah.
newer genres of heavy metal, more modern stuff.
Yeah.
But here in Brazil, people love traditional heavy metal, stuff like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest,
Beautiful.
Accept,
Hell
but
yeah.
also power metal is really huge.
Okay.
Power metal is really huge here in Brazil. One of the biggest metal bands in Brazil is Angra, which was first known as a power metal band. Nowadays, they're a little bit more progressive. They're kind of coming back to a more speed metal side of things, but they really got popular with power metal. So that's pretty much my ballpark. Traditional heavy metal and power metal. That's what I love to do.
That makes sense. Yeah, and it's being a metal guy myself. It's been really really cool to sort of see how everybody has their different journey, right, towards falling into that in that genre. Like, I came from more of like the rock stuff, just basic kind of rock stuff, and like it was being mixed with other genres. That was kind of my introduction sort of to it before I got into some of the heavier stuff. So you had like Beastie Boys and all of that, which was mixing like the rap stuff as well as with some of the rock stuff. And then, definitely coming up in Texas, it was like Pantera was like,
Nice.
just it was Pantera, right? So, growing up on that stuff, and I obviously started to trend towards some of that. I had my little punk and even pop punk phase for sure. But obviously that just was taking me towards the more heavier stuff. So it's funny, our channels kind of blew up in a similar way because that was what did it for me, was vocal covers, right?
Yeah,
Was
that's right, man. You used to do that.
Yeah, I used to do it like that was like a mainstay for my channel for a very long time, was just covering a lot of, and to your point earlier, was the metalcore stuff. So I was covering a lot of the metalcore stuff, and man, yeah, just got sort of a big attraction there. And I was leveraging, of course, the previous audiences that I had, including the new ones, to do some of the cooler things to get me in the position to where I'm in it right now and being able to create and just do whatever it is that I want. And what I love
Mhm.
about how you do it and your approach, it is new in the sense that it's not traditional. And I think the genre, not just the genre, the music industry in general is still trying to catch up to this and this new technology that's available. People basically being able to self publish and remain independent. You spoke earlier about some of the contracts and all of that. Can you
Yeah.
expand kind of on that and being like an independent creative doing music, maybe even some of the challenges, but obviously there's far more upside, and you and I have reaped the benefits there in that independence.
Yeah, man. I signed an NDA, so I won't be able to tell you exactly what the company was, but I remember that specific company that I really wanted to work with. It's the record label, one of my favorite bands of all time, and I really wanted to work with them. And they were one of the few people that answered my emails. So I got the contract. I talked to the guy on the phone, to the record label owner on the phone. I read their contract and it was like 12.5% of sales of on my own album.
Wow.
I would do an album. Yeah, and it's like there's a that recoupable recoupable advance that they would give me, that it was around $5,000. It's like that. Not a lot, but
Right.
maybe that wouldn't even cover the production of the album itself. And then after that, after those $5,000 were recoupable, I would receive only 12.5% of the sales of the album. And I was like, so that's what it's like. And I know that's sort of a modern thing to have worse albums for the artists, because now record labels need to embrace more aspects of the artist's life in order to survive.
Right.
Because back in the day, record labels were strictly necessary to distribute your music and stuff like that. Nowadays, you can do it on your own. So one of the side effects of that is that the record labels that still are signing artists up, they need to be responsible for more sides, a bigger scope of the artist's career. Like, it's not only about selling albums anymore. The record labels need to chime in into the merchandise, into touring, even on your side hustles, like streaming, for example. I wouldn't be able to stream without the record label's owner permission. That sort of stuff, which would be ridiculous. It would be insane. I sent an email invite to an artist the other day, and he signed to a record label, and he replied to me. He was like, Dan, I would love to, but I need to wait for my record label contract to end in order to do anything that's like promoting other artists, stuff like that, working in collaboration with other people. I need my contract to end to do that. Imagine that. And that's a relative, I'm not saying who it is, but that's a relatively mainstream artist in heavy metal.
Right.
Imagine being a prisoner in that way to like, you're an employee at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I didn't want that. That was what motivated me the most to become independent. Even though I thought in the time, even though I might make less money, I don't want to have a boss. And then later on, I discovered that's not the case at all. Look, man, you and I make more money than a lot of mainstream metal.
100%.
100%. YouTubers make more money than a lot of musicians that you at home know and enjoy.
That is a fact.
It's a freedom and a level of control over your own life that's just not worth giving up, man. So that's what motivated me the most to become independent. And during the grindy times, during the tough times, I always reminded myself, hey, at least I don't have a boss yelling at me, and I'm making 100% of my money, and also taking care of 100% of my business, making 100% of the decisions, which might be good and bad sometimes, for better or for worse. But it's everything that happens is my responsibility.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome. That's just something that attracts me in a career very much.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to head over to Rippaverse.com to check out our comic book company. We have books, plenty of merchandise, and even some glorious animations from Rippaverse Studios. Next up, possibly our most anticipated book thus far, Yaira.